getting into the revised version of chapter 197 of One Punch Man, which is called What Only I Can Do. And it starts off in a flashback during the events at the end of the Monster Association arc, where Saitama punches Garou after time had been reversed. In this version, we see Blast watching intently from the sidelines, and it's revealed that during this moment, he was trying to reduce the damage by sucking in Garou's cosmic radiation into another dimension. But he is surprised at the events that took place watching Saitama punch Garou and the power that starts to leak from his face. Suddenly, a massive explosion then pushes out of Garou, and Blast seems to spot something above. It's a human form, highlighted through a black hole and drawing in the power that was leaking out of Garou. Blast immediately recognizes it as Void and rushes in using his space gateway powers to getting close to that man. And now, in the same dimension as him, we can see just how skinny Void is while he feeds on the cosmic energy. Blast straight away launches an attack that prepares a giant ball of energy before shooting it towards him. However, unfortunately, Blast wasn't fast enough, and Void manages to finish absorbing Garou's energy, transforming into a fully recovered version that grabs his own swords. Void slices the attack, and Blast, surprised, manages to split the ball of plasma in four as they explode behind him, all while Void's swords emanate in cosmic energy. Blast then creates a couple new wormholes and sends out two of those same attacks, sandwiching Void from both sides. But Void suddenly grabs the space itself around him, bending it like a cloth. He then covers himself with the space cloth and disappears out of sight. And this power, I notice, reminds me of Takako Uro from Jujutsu Kaisen, whose power is to treat space itself as a surface. But in the case of Void, it seems like it can be used to traverse dimensions and is way less limited. And by using this power, Void just completely disappears, and both of Blast's attacks just shoot on by without hitting anything, and Blast is then left hearing Void's laugh in the distance. I want to also mention that I'm loving his new design so far. It's sleek and beautiful, much more similar to Cosmic Garou's form that really embodies God's gift to them both. I think it's much better than that weird, gross look he had, even if it was more closely related to the webcomic back then. But before we get into the rest of the chapter, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps my small channel grow. Also, I've made a Patreon and it's in the description below. Support me if you'd like. We then return to the present, where Blast finishes explaining what we just saw. That after taking Garou's power, Void has just become insanely strong and revived himself. Flash asks if he's capable of moving between dimensions like Blast, and he confirms yes. He then thinks to himself that Void must be an opponent that cannot be defeated with just speed. And Blast continues stating that since then, Void has been hiding in another dimension and making preparations. But he's now going on the offensive. Flash wonders what the hell kind of powers Void has and asks how they're going to win against that. But Blast responds explaining that they come from God's powers and the higher dimension where it resides ignores distance, energy and size. But as to what extent it ignores them, it depends entirely on the subjects God bestows his power to, and for a second time we get the gorgeous colored panel of God's form standing on the moon. Both Flash and Sitch seem to still be confused about the situation, and Flash realizes this is why they're desperate to find the cubes, but I want to get into something in regards to Sitch. I have to say, I'm kind of worried that this is conflicting with the events of chapter 173, where Sitch was explaining the beef between Blast and God, and in this conversation he seemed to know a lot about the events that transpired over the previous 20 years, including God's power and empty void. So it is strange to me that he's confused about the exposition Blast is saying at this very moment, because I don't think it would conflict with anything he already knew or would be relatively new information. And I'm not sure if this is a plot hole, but I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out. Sitch suddenly remembers that he needs to check up on several of the higher-ups and heroes before suddenly a woman appears summoning him for an emergency. He dashes off, but the woman mentions that they've received a letter addressed to Flash. And this letter and the next part of the chapter are basically almost the exact same events from the previous version. The poem is the same, and Flash's reaction is the same, although this time the dialogue is a little bit different, explaining that Sonic is luring out Flash for Void. Saitama also realizes that it seems to be more along the lines that Sonic wants to defeat Flash before Void gets to him, and Blast is just left confused at their relationship. Flash then notes that Void might be there if he goes to the designated place, calling out that this is a perfect chance for Blast. He agrees, but also states that all going together might alert Void, so Flash should go on ahead and alert Blast using a signal alarm. Until then, he'll work with Sitch to spread information within the Hero Association that they need to be on the lookout for any dimension slashes. We then do get the same joke from the previous version where Sonic accidentally puts his return address on the letter and is mocked by Manako, although in this context it feels more like a throwaway line. Blast then asks Saitama what he'll do, but Flash answers saying that since Saitama is his disciple, he won't stop him if he asks to come. But we know Saitama, and in perfect character, he just states that everything will be fine with Blast, so him and Manako are just going to get udon. And giving the chapter credit where credit is due, this makes much more sense for his character than what he said in the previous version, which was, yeah sure, since he's not got anything better to do, and that didn't really feel like Saitama that much. Annoyed, Flash just obliges and speeds off the roof, thinking to himself about the location Sonic mentioned in his letter, where childish dreams are seen. And the next sequence is basically the same as the previous version of the chapter, where we see a flashback of Sonic and Flash as kids together. They talk about their dreams and aspirations, and Sonic explains that he wants to climb to the top and take over the village so he can tear it down. He then brings out the map and they choose the location for the new village, which is now in a waste pit. And at this waste pit, Flash lands confronting Sonic, who was waiting for him. The scene, like the previous depiction, starts with them talking about the dump, and that is a perfect setting for them to finally end their dreams together. They draw their swords, but what is different in the redraw is Flash asking Sonic if this order comes from Void himself. Sonic denies this though and states he's just here to settle the question of who is stronger between them, while readying to attack. Flash pauses, understanding Sonic for not backing down, but is reminded of Void's Dimension Slash, and he feels hopeless since there's nothing they can do to compete with that. He continues to think that this place symbolizes their free spirits, and by ending each other here, they can embody that freedom without regrets. Flash then prepares to attack, and states that he'll be by his side for Sonic's final moments. And the chapter ends there, with the last part showing Sonic and Flash's resolve to end each other there and now. And I think this is much better than the previous interactions between them. The flashback scenes feel more well paced, and their resolve in the final moments of the chapter just feels more believable without making Sonic look so childish. Also, Saitama is set up for a more circumstantial entrance, similar to the webcomic, rather than just being dragged around by Blast. If you know, you know, I'm not going to say any spoilers. But so far, I give this chapter a 7 out of 10. It's now coming to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy you stopped by. My channel is steadily growing, and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting. And I also have a Patreon now, so feel free to support me however you like. The link will be in the description, and I will shout out names at the end of each video. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.